Welcome to the Health Coach Collaborative podcast. Today we are going to be talking about the importance of digestion, digestive health, and the microbiome. Before we dive into the digestive process, just so that we can start off with a basis for people. So Hippocrates said hundreds of years ago that all disease starts in the gut. And now science is showing that could be true or is true. It's pushing towards that, or the health of our microbiome could be creating a lot of the diseases that let's say chronic illnesses, like you said, IBS, IBD, could be causing those things. Can you list off some of the common symptoms of digestive issues that people might have that they don't actually know that this, let's say, upper portion of the digestive system could be contributing to these diseases?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm going to start off with gas and burping and bloating, which are maybe three of the most common complaints that I hear about. And my clients are always saying, well, I've got a little bit of extra bloating and I'm doing a lot of sit-ups trying to, define my abs. It's not your abs, your muscles are there, you're constipated, or you've got a little bit of gas, or there's fermentation going on in your gut that is a result of either improper chewing or improper food combining or lack of digestive enzymes. And this is a very big, very big issue that I think almost everybody is dealing with, is that their digestive system is just not making the chemicals that are required to break down food. So there's a chemical breakdown and there's a mechanical breakdown. We have some control over the mechanical breakdown with the amount of chewing that we do. And back in the day when our parents used to tell us to chew every bite of food 20 times, if you do that, I mean, that is a little excessive, right? Like your jaws are going to be so tired. You're going to eat half your meal because you'll be super tired of your jaws will be sore before you even finish your meal. But if you did invest more time in chewing, you may see a direct result in as far as lack of bloating, like your belly is flatter. You have less gas from either end, which are the most common symptoms. And then we can get into other ones like heartburn, acid reflux. Heather, do you want to talk about acid reflux a little bit?
Just to take a step back, that was one of the reasons that I really became interested in natural nutrition. Is I had severe acid reflux and I was put on a medication, and I was on it for a number of years, but it never really took my symptoms away. And I wasn't getting any better. And I had a conversation with somebody that taught natural nutrition, and she told me about low stomach acid, which was a huge eye-opener for me. I was always told, and I thought I had too much stomach acid, but actually what I was suffering from was my body was not producing enough stomach acid. And there's so many people that have the same issue. Actually, it's probably more common than having too much stomach acid. So essentially what was happening, my body wasn't producing enough stomach acid. And so the food that I was eating and consuming got into my stomach, but it wasn't really doing that digestive process. It wasn't breaking the bonds in the food. So when that food ended up in my intestines, it just wasn't digesting properly. I probably was nutrient deficient because I wasn't able to absorb those nutrients. It just caused a lot of problems. And of course, I had the symptoms of heartburn, acid coming back up. It wasn't until I actually started using digestive enzymes with an HCl supplement. So our stomachs are meant to have a really strong stomach acid. It's supposed to be like battery acid, right? And it's because it's starting to break down the bonds in the food. And then you're able to absorb it better. So if you don't have that strong stomach acid, you're not breaking those bonds. You're not able to absorb your food. A lot of times you end up with nutrient deficiencies. There's lots of vitamins and minerals that depend on that strong stomach acid to be absorbed. Also, you're allowing a lot of those microbes, because remember, besides breaking down those bonds of the food, that stomach acid is one of the first barrier, I guess, to a lot of those bacteria that's coming in as well, right? So having that strong stomach acid helps to kill a lot of those viruses and bacteria before they even get further down in the body. So it's really, really important to have that strong stomach acid. And many of us don't have it.
So what are some of the reasons for low stomach acid, and maybe some of the common ways that the allopathic medical community would quote unquote treat low stomach acid?
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, most of the time, and also from working with clients, many of them have been put on proton pump inhibitors, which actually stop the production of the stomach acid. So it literally turns those pumps off that are in your stomach. Or a lot of people will use the over-the-counter antacids, which is kind of neutralizing the acid. And it helps, and they feel like it's helping their symptoms. But really what it's doing is it's just masking what's going on. Everything is still happening underneath. And it perpetuates that cycle.
So what are we doing wrong today because I think that many of these symptoms that people have with digestion or problems with stomach acid, for example, are common to today, because I don't think that, humans probably 200 years ago, if they had digestive symptoms, would have been put on a proton pump inhibitor. They wouldn't have existed back then. So what are some of the things that we're doing, quote unquote, wrong that are causing these issues?
Oh, there's numerous things that are causing these issues. First of all, we are eating too fast. That's a big problem. We're not eating slowly enough. The chewing is like the on button to the I think of the digestive system as almost like a factory, like an assembly line. Something is happening in every part of your digestive system. So when you chew, that's the very first step. That's like pressing the on button, and it triggers the rest of your system to start moving. But that would involve a bit of preparation. If you've got a huge factory with a lot of machinery, you don't just press on and hope that everything's going to work properly. You want to make sure that your equipment is functioning properly. So you're going to have to check out every aspect of it, make sure it's clean, make sure there aren't any obstructions. So, digestion is something we want to be mindful about. And we talk so much about this throughout our program, especially in the digestion and the microbiome course. But let's just answer your question here, Lynn. The digestive system is divided into two parts, the upper system and the lower system. It starts with your mouth, and actually it starts before food even goes into your mouth. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But when you put food into your mouth, the act of chewing starts the digestive process. It goes down your esophagus into your stomach, and then through your small intestine and into your large intestine. So the upper part is mouth, esophagus, and stomach, and the lower part is your small intestine and your large large intestine. So by separating the two and being aware that what happens in the upper part is going to impact the lower part of your digestive system, you have to kind of think of it as a top-down process it's critical at every single point, but especially in the upper part, because really this is the only part we have any kind of control over. Once you've swallowed your food, it's kind of up to whatever your digestive system is going to do, right? So when you, first of all, make the decision about what you're going to put into your mouth, that's really important. And there's so many influences that determine what you're going to eat, right? Planning or not planning, cravings, emotions, as we know. If you're in a bad mood, you may find yourself, munching on food, or if you're stressed out, you may have zero appetite and you just end up drinking water or something that's very easy to digest. So, aside from all of that, making those choices of what you're going to put into your mouth, and then how you eat and how you chew. So that's the part that we have control over. And so aside from what you're choosing to eat, the way that you eat your food is going to determine how it's digested. So we can talk about every step of the process. But before we get into that, just understand that whatever is happening in your intestines, like if you have IBS, if you have IBD, any kind of GI issue, it most likely originated from something that's happened in your upper digestion. So the biggest impact and influence that you're going to have on your GI condition is how you chew. And there are a few other steps in that process that I'd love to cover this morning. First of all, aside from chewing, there's even emotional and mental preparation before we sit down to eat. So as many people know, the nervous system has two distinct states, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. The sympathetic is your fight or flight state. The parasympathetic is your rest and digest state. You can't turn on the digestive system if you aren't in the rest and digest state. That is absolutely mandatory. But we eat while we're driving, we eat under stressful conditions, like at our desk. 40% of us eat at our desks every single day while we're working. We don't even take that 10 minutes to move away from our desk. We can't digest when we're focused on something else. We're not eating mindfully. We're not causing that, or we're interfering with both the chemical and the mechanical processes that digestion needs in order to function properly. So how do we get into that state? Well, a very simple way, and no matter where you are, I mean, I wouldn't recommend eating in your car because you are interfering with digestion, but when you can sit down somewhere, take 3 deep breaths, 3 deep cleansing breaths. And 2 more. That'll take your nervous system from that. See, even my speaking is a little bit slower now, from your sympathetic to your parasympathetic state. And you can do this, of course, anytime. Like, it helps you sleep, it helps you calm down when you're feeling anxious. But before you put that first bite of food in your mouth, taking those 3 deep breaths will help you get into that parasympathetic state so that your digestive system is even capable of producing digestive enzymes, hydrochloric acid, and all the ASEs, all those enzymes that are necessary to break down your food. So that's a really important one. But, as the Japanese say, we eat with our eyes first, right? So using your 5 senses before you eat is also part of the preparation for good digestion. So looking at your food, looking at the colors, taking a moment to smell it and appreciate its aromas, listening to the textures of food, maybe as you're preparing it, as you're unwrapping it, as you're chopping up your vegetables. What other senses? Touching your food. When I was a kid, I used to love having food fights. My mother didn't love it so much, but my sister and I, we really enjoyed it. And I'm kind of sad that my kids don't do that, probably because they'd be severely punished, but it would be fun because I got to really enjoy the texture of you touch it. We don't do that anymore, right? We don't want to get our hands dirty, but just even sensual, like while food is in your mouth, just taking a second to kind of appreciate its texture as you're chewing and how that texture changes with every bite that you take. This is all part of that process. We call it mindful eating, but all of your senses are involved in stimulating your digestion to produce enzymes, to make enough hydrochloric acid and other gastric juices so that your stomach can digest proteins, and to prepare the rest of your system to receive food. Now, I know that takes time, right? It's a new habit that needs to be formed, and this could take several months. But guess what? You get to practice 3 times a day or more for some of us. So you've got lots of time and lots of opportunity to practice getting your body into the right state to digest food.
And when we talk about chewing, some foods take longer to chew than others. So when we talk about chewing 20 times, sometimes it could be if you're having a piece of fruit and you chew, by the time you get to the 12th or 15th chew, that fruit is pretty much dissolved in your mouth. So you don't have to go the whole 20. Some things take a little longer. If you've got a piece of steak and you're chewing, you might be up to 30 chews before it's really starting to break down. So depending on what the food is that you're putting into your mouth, whatever that fork or spoon is putting in your mouth, you can change your chews a little bit, but just appreciate that the more work you do in your mouth, the less work you're going to do in your stomach.
I think that's particularly true for carbohydrates too, that the majority of our carbohydrates, well, a good portion of our carbohydrates are digested in the mouth. So if we don't chew and mix the saliva in and the digestive enzymes that happen in our saliva with our food, then it compromises everything from the top down. And so we've talked kind of about the upper part of our digestive system, the mouth, the esophagus, and the stomach, and how important it is. What about the lower part of our digestive system leading into the microbiome and intestinal health?
And this is where we see a lot of the symptoms as well, right? The gas, the bloating, just being uncomfortable. And this is where our food is supposed to be absorbed, right? So that breakdown, the mechanical breakdown, the chemical breakdown in our stomach is pushing that food into our lower intestinal tract. We're supposed to have all of these digestive enzymes and other chemicals that are going in to help further break down our food, and then we're able to absorb it. And then again, this is where a lot of breakdown happens as well in our digestive process. And this is where we have a really good section in our program about digestive enzymes, because they are so helpful for so many people. As we age, we don't produce those digestive enzymes like we did when we were younger, and they're so important and critical for the breakdown of the food so that we can absorb it. So maybe we can talk a little bit about the benefits of digestive enzymes.
So yeah, if we recognize that different food is broken down in different parts of the digestive system, it kind of helps us to understand where we have to make that extra emphasis and what areas have to be worked on. So when I have clients with digestive problems, as part of their the reconnaissance mission, like when they're, I'll ask them, I'll give them little projects to become aware of, how they feel after eating and after eating specific foods. So what do they have trouble breaking down? Is it protein? Do they experience some gas or bloating when they eat meat? Do they feel heavy after eating meat, for example, or dairy products, or starchy foods? Do they notice that when they have pasta or bread that they experience some bloating or discomfort or sugar highs and lows, things like that. So as you said, Lynn, starches are partly, in great part actually, digested in the mouth. So when you're eating bread, pasta, rice, potatoes, you want to spend a little more time chewing those foods, because you could do a great deal of mechanical breakdown in the mouth, and then the chemical that is in amylase, the enzyme that breaks down starches, kicks in. It's in your saliva, and together with your teeth and your tongue and amylase, you can significantly digest starchy carbs in your mouth. Then food goes into your stomach where protein is digested. So for protein, we need really strong, like almost battery acid. And, as Heather alluded to earlier, we're very familiar with the symptoms of what we think is an overactive stomach, like the acid and the burning. But we are not aware of the symptoms of underactive stomach. So there are lots of medicines to treat acidity. So if you have heartburn, if you have an ulcer, if you have acid reflux, there are lots of medications and baking soda and lots of things, even some natural alternatives to help alleviate some of those symptoms. But nobody really talks about an underactive stomach. So how do you know if you have an underactive stomach? And that's one of the signs, is if you're not breaking down your protein properly. Your body also gives you some other signs too. Like if you see vertical ridges on your fingernails, sometimes that's a sign of poor hydrochloric acid. Heather, earlier you mentioned that it's really important to break down protein in the stomach because you need to absorb calcium and zinc and certain other minerals as a result of that protein breakdown, and vice versa. You can't make stomach acid without those minerals, right? So without enough zinc and calcium and magnesium and all of the minerals actually, but zinc is a really, really important one for acid production. We can't not only break down those foods, but then we can't absorb those nutrients. So it's that like cyclical, issue that a lot of us are dealing with. Okay, so after the protein leaves the stomach, and there's virtually no protein and no starch digestion in the stomach. So think about a steak that needs to be disintegrated into basically mush. That's the goal. And by taking medications that turn off the acid, that steak goes past the stomach undigested. And when food is undigested and it ends up in the intestines, the bacteria and the microbes in there are having a feast. They are feasting on undigested food, and that causes them to spread. And unfortunately, in most cases, what's spreading is the undesirable microbes, the ones that contribute to gas and bloating, the ones that contribute to dysbiosis, to imbalances that can then down the road lead to autoimmune diseases and even heart disease and obesity, and interfere with our brain health and our mental health. And the more we learn about the microbiome, the more we see how connected it is to the rest of our bodies. So before food lands in the large intestine, it has to go through the small intestine, which is this little tube, but it's a very, very long tube. And the small intestine is lined with these finger-like projections called villi, and beneath the villi are microvilli, and they look like shag carpeting. And if you cut it open and you unrolled the small intestine and measured the surface area of the villi and the microvilli, it approximates a football field. So think about this for a second, and I will go to a football field and just look at it just to remind myself of how much surface area my body has to absorb vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, other nutrients. It's outstanding. Like, it's just, it blows my mind that we still suffer from malabsorption and deficiencies when we have that much opportunity to absorb nutrients from food. And why do we suffer from this? Because we're eating crappy food, first of all, but also because we're doing things wrong up here and up here that interfere with the absorption of those nutrients. So back to my original point, it is really critical that not only what goes into your mouth, but how you prepare yourself to digest food. You need to take that time in order to make sure that you maximize nutrient absorption and you maximize your opportunity for good digestion further down. So in the small intestine, there are enzymes being produced, and the small intestine gets a lot of help from your liver and from your pancreas. So your pancreas is making enzymes that squirt into the small intestine to break down, final breakdown of protein, final breakdown of starches and sugars and fat, as well as your liver, which is making bile, and that's stored in your gallbladder, and then it squirts into your small intestine when there is food present in there. So all of your accessory organs are working together to finalize the breakdown of the food that you ate. And then whatever waste products remain, they go into your large intestine, where 1,000 different species of microbes go to work to make stool, and there's some water being reabsorbed in your large intestine and out. And so we want to see a transit time from start to finish that's about 24 to 36 hours. So this is another clue. So you have control over here, and then you have a bit of control over what's coming out the other end. So the other end is like your end product. So if this is a factory, if this is an assembly line, poop is, I guess, our end product. So we have to make sure that we're taking a good look every time we have a bowel movement to ensure that what is coming out of us looks the way it's supposed to look. There's something called a Bristol stool chart that you can look up online. We have it in our course, of course, and it shows you what different stool looks like. And there is such a thing as a perfect stool. First of all, you want to make sure you're going every single day. And I have clients all the time saying, well, I go every day. I go at least once a day, first thing in the morning after breakfast. All right, let's do a transit time test to see if you are in fact going every 24 hours, or if what's coming out of you is from 2 or 3 days ago. And in many cases, that's what's happening. So if you haven't done a transit time test, the best way to do it is to eat something that's going to show up in your stool, like beets or corn or sesame seeds, something that goes out in the same way that it went in. And so let's say you ate corn for lunch today. Within 24 to 36 hours, you should see that corn in your stool. And that's it. If you're still seeing corn the next day or the following day, that's how long it's taking to completely digest process, metabolize, and eliminate that particular meal, which was today's lunch with the corn. But some people aren't even going to see corn for 2 or 3 days or 8 days, or in some cases, even 9 or 10 days. And that means that even though you're going every single day, what's coming out of you is from several days ago.
And what is the issue with that, Lisa, if the transit time is so long, like if it's taking, 72 hours or longer, what is the issue with that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Heather, because I'll often hear from my clients that their doctors have told them that it's normal to only go once every 3 days because that's how their body has been since the day they were born. Well, I have a dog, and if my dog didn't have a bowel movement for 3 days, I would be freaking out. We would be at the vet so fast. And I would encourage any human to be concerned too if they didn't go for 2 or 3 days. Think of your large intestine or your gut as the waste dump of your body. And if there is waste, if there are waste products in there that are not being eliminated in a timely fashion, then the thousands of 1,000 strains of microbes, so trillions and trillions of microbes in there are just having a field day fermenting. And as they're fermenting, like I said earlier, they are feeding, and they're feeding and spreading. And if we're feeding unhealthy microbes because our intestine isn't clearing out as quickly as it should be, those microbes spread very quickly. And that will, in a potentially very short period of time, lead to a condition of imbalance in your large gut, where there is a preponderance of unhealthy microbes versus the healthier strains. And microbes aren't just sitting around in there. They are actively working. They're eating, they are releasing gases, and these gases can pass in and out of your cells. They can pass in and out of your intestine into your bloodstream. And as they travel through your bloodstream, they can cause headaches. They can contribute to acne, to psoriasis and eczema and other skin conditions, to changes in your mental health. They can contribute to allergies and all kinds of health imbalances. Many of them are felt immediately. So now I personally notice that if I don't have a bowel movement for even 1 day, I immediately break out on my chin. Chin, chest, and back acne are an indication that there's too much waste in your intestines. Now, of course, it could be caused by other things as well, but that's the first thing I consider when I have a client with acne, complaining about acne on their chin, especially. Sorry, again, I went on. Does anyone want to jump in here and say anything?
No, it's, you know what, it's all real. I'm riveted. I'm watching you and I'm like riveted.
Heather's like, I know this information, but you can tell me again. I think all of this is really important stuff to dig into, and I'm not sure there's many other surface level topics that we can cover, but is there anything else that you guys want to include in our little chat about digestion?
So in this week's newsletter on digestion and microbiome, we dive into the world of the biotics, prebiotics, probiotics, postbiotics, and symbiotics, giving you a little information on how they can improve the balance of microbes in your intestine to support digestion, to support elimination, and stop the process of all those things that I just described.
And I think too, I think we're all starting to understand the downstream effects of having a healthy gut and not having a healthy gut. And bringing it back to Lynn's point from the beginning is that science is starting to show what we've talked about for many years as natural nutrition practitioners, that all disease starts in the gut. Most of the diseases start in the gut with the unhealthy digestion. So for people that are really interested in digestive health, how the microbiome affects your health, we do a really deep dive in our course, the digestive health and the microbiome.
Thanks for watching. And if you want to know more, you'll find the link in the bio. Be sure to subscribe and like our channel and check out our other videos if you're interested. Have a great day.